Hi guys, it's me again, Miss Mahana. So today the book we're going to be reading is Mr. Peabody's Apple. And this story, it happens in a town that calls Happyville. There's some kids playing baseball. Okay, ready? Okay. In the town of Happyville, which wasn't a big town, Mr. Peabody was congratulating his little league team on a great game. They had not won, but no one really cared because they had such a good time playing. Mr. Peabody was the history teacher of the local elementary school, and in the summertime, he dedicated every Saturday to organize baseball games with other schools. Billy Little, who wasn't a very big boy, was one of the Mr. Peabody's students. He loved baseball more than anything, and he thought Mr. Peabody was the greatest. After each game, he would always stay to help pick up the bats and the balls. And when they were finished, Mr. Peabody would smile and say, "Thanks, Billy, good job. I will see you next Saturday." Then he would start his walk along the main street of Happyville, which wasn't a very big street, waving hello to everyone he knew, and everyone would have hello back. Along the way, he was past Mr. Funkdally's fruit market. Here, Mr. Peabody would stop and admire Mr. Funkdally's fresh apple. He would pick out the shiniest apple, drop it in his bag, and continue in his way. Across the street, Tom Tidebottom watched with curiosity as Mr. Peabody walked away with the apple. "That's strange," Tom said to himself. "Mr. Peabody didn't pay anyone for the apple." Tom got his skateboard and rushed to his friend. This is Tom, right? Mr. Peabody picks shiniest apple. The following Saturday, the Peabody's team played another game and they lost as usual, but no one seemed to care because they had such a good time playing. Billy picked it up the balls and the bat, and Mr. Peabody sat on his walk home. He waved to everyone he knew and they waved back. Once again, he stopped outside Mr. Funkstelly's fruit market, picked it up a shiny apple, dropped it in his bag, and continued on his way. Across the street, Tommy Tidebottom and his friends watched Mr. Peabody and they were amazed at what they saw. Mr. Peabody had not paid for his apple. They couldn't wait to tell all of his friends, who told their parents, who told their neighbors, who told their friends in the town of Happyville, which wasn't a very big town. They told everybody. The Saturday after that, Mr. Peabody was standing all alone on the baseball field, wondering where everybody was. Then he saw Billy walking towards him with a sad look on his face. "Hello, Billy. I'm glad you're here, but where is the rest of the team?" asked Mr. Peabody. Billy remained silent. "What is it, Billy?" he asked it again. Billy didn't look up. "Everybody thinks you are a thief," he said to the ground. Mr. Peabody looked confused. He took off his hat and scratched his head. "Who says I am a thief, Billy?" "And what did I steal?" he asked. "Tom Tidebottom and his friends said they saw you take an apple from Mr. Funk's deli fruit market twice, and they said you didn't pay for them," answered Billy. "Oh," said Mr. Peabody, putting his head back on his head. Let's go and talk with Mr. Funksdale about it, shall we? Everybody thinks you are a thief. That was the words of Billy. He looks really upset, right? Let's see what's gonna happen. They walked down the main street, which wasn't a very big street, and Mr. Peabody waved to all people he knew. But now some of them did not wave back, and some pretend they did not even see him. They finally arrived at Mr. Funk's Deli Fruit Market. Out popped Mr. Funk's Deli, who said, "Hey, what are you doing here, Mr. Peabody? Why aren't you in the game?" "There wasn't a game today," said Mr. Peabody, "and I'm wondering if I could take my apple earlier than usual." "Sure, why not?" replied Mr. Funkdally. "You pay for them every Saturday morning when you picked it up your milk. You can take them when you like." "You want the big shiny one, Mr. Peabody?" Mr. Peabody took his apple, smiled, and offered it to Billy. "I would like to take the apple, Mr. Peabody, but I have to go and find Tommy and explain everything," said Billy. "When you find him, ask him to come over to my house. I would like to speak to him too," replied Mr. Peabody. Look his face. Does he look surprised? So do you. Let's continue. A little while later, Billy found Tommy and told him what happened with the apples. He told Tommy that Mr. Peabody wanted to speak to him right away. So off Tom ran, and when he arrived, he rang the doorbell, and Mr. Peabody came to the door. They looked at each other for a while. "Oh dear, Miss Peabody," said Tommy on the doorstep. "I didn't understand. I should not have said what I said, but it looked like you hadn't paid for the apples." Mr. Peabody's eyebrow went up a little and felt a warm breeze blow across his face. "It doesn't matter what it looked like. What matters is the truth." Tom looked down in his shoes and said, "I'm so sorry. What can I do to make things better now?" Mr. Peabody took a deep breath, looked up a small cloud that was in the sky, and said, "I will tell you what, Tommy. Meet me in the baseball diamond in 1 hour and bring a pillow stuffed with feathers." "Okay," said Tommy, who then ran off on his house to get a pillow. Here's Tommy in front of his house. An hour later, Tom met Mr. Peabody on the pitcher's mound. "Hello, Tom," said Mr. Peabody. "Follow me and bring me your pillow." Tom followed Mr. Peabody on the top of the bleachers, wondering what this was all about. "It's a windy day, isn't it?" asked Mr. Peabody. When they reached the top, Tom nodded his head in agreement. "Here's a pair of scissors. Now cut the pillow in half and shake the feathers out." Tom looked confused, but didn't need to wait. He thought it was a small price to pay to gain Mr. Body's forgiveness. The wind carried off the thousands of feathers far and wide. The wind carries the thousands of feathers far and wide. Each feather represents a person in Happyville. Tommy looked relieved and said, "Is that all I have to do to make things better?" "There's no more thing," said Mr. Peabody. "Now you must go and pick up all the feathers." Tommy frowned at him. "I don't think it's possible to pick up all the feathers," Tommy replied. "It would be just as impossible to undo the damage that you have done by spreading the rumor that I am a thief," said Mr. Peabody. "Each feather represents a person in Happyville." There was a long pause as Tom began to understand what Mr. Peabody was saying. Finally, he said, I guess I have a lot of work ahead of me. Mr. Peabody smiled and said, Indeed, you do. Next time, don't be so quick to judge people. Next, and remember the power of the words. Then he handed Tommy the shiny red apple and made his way home. And here we go. Mr. Peabody makes his way home. The end. You see they're playing outside by the window. Can you see that? So that's it for today. This book is beautiful because I hope you understand that, right? It teaches us not to make any judgment just by the look. So we always have to think about it. And I love the feathers. So words, it's like the feathers. When you cut the pillow, it goes all around. That's why we have to be very careful with our words, okay? Be kind and have a nice day, all right? See you soon.